What will England's backline look like for the Six Nations 2024? I love the fact that the Six Nations build-up videos are beginning. I'll be doing this for other nations as well. But on Thursday, Steve Borthwick will be announcing his Six Nations training squad. We don't exactly know how big that squad will be. I imagine it will be quite large, probably between 40 and 50 players will be named in that before it gets narrowed down slightly as you get closer to the Six Nations. So this is a chance just to cast the net wide a little bit and have a look at the players that will make up Steve Borthwick's squad and who are the new faces that potentially could make their mark in this year's tournament. So that's what I'm going to do, position by position. And as always, give your thoughts in the comments on what you make of this. Now I'm going to, through each position, mention the players that were involved during the World Cup, the last time the England squad were together, which players are going to be cast aside for whatever reason or have chosen to, say, retire from international rugby, as is the case with Ben Youngs there, or players that maybe are out of form or other people just demanding to be picked. And scrum half, I apologise, Danny Kerr, I've written your name wrong. Only one N, my bad. Anyway, the three scrum halves at the World Cup were Ben Youngs, Danny Kerr and Alex Mitchell. Alex Mitchell was a late injury replacement, remember, for Jack Van Portfleet, and then made the starting position his own. He started in that World Cup semi-final and played brilliantly, did Alex Mitchell. Now, I am not a big advocate for getting rid of players because they're old, even if they might not make the next World Cup. I don't think that is necessarily a reason to get rid of a player. I do think with scrum half, I am going to say, thank you, Danny Kerr, you've been wonderful. And I would never rule out Danny Kerr playing for England again, but I think now is the time to look elsewhere because that is one of the positions, when you look back at the mistakes Eddie Jones made, that was one of the positions, scrum half and hooker in particular, where there were just not enough good players who had game time that they could be trusted at the top level. And we cannot make that mistake again in such a key position. So Alex Mitchell is the only player that I take forward from the World Cup squad. The players that I would take along with him into a Six Nations training squad: Ben Spencer, whose form for Bath is demanding that he gets picked. Really good all-round player, good rugby brain, good kicker. His box kicking's great, which is important at international level. I think he's due. Jack Van Portfleet, who would have been in that World Cup squad if he hadn't got injured. And look, I know he's not actually starting for Sale Sharks at the minute, but I still think there is elite potential in Rafi Quirk. He's had injury issues, he's had form issues, but I do believe, and I know Eddie Jones got a bit of stick for it, but I do believe there is such a thing as a test match animal. And Rafi Quirk, when I think about who would I compare him to? Do you know what? I compare him to Ireland's Craig Casey. He's a backup to the starter, but he just has an explosive burst of speed that is a real danger and a very fast pass as well. So I still think there's merit in Rafi Quirk. So tell me what you think about that. If you disagree, let me know in the comments, or if you agree even. As we move to fly half, where obviously the three fly halves, I mean, England have no concerns with the 10 jersey. Outstanding options there. For the time being, Owen Farrell is not going to be an option. We'll wait and see how long-term that is. But I mean, they went to the World Cup with three fantastic world-class or potentially world-class fly halves. Who's going to get the starting gig out of Marcus Smith and George Ford for the Six Nations? That's going to be an interesting one to watch. As for new faces, Finn Smith looks like the automatic person to bring in. I don't actually feel that England need to bring a third fly half in. I mean, it's going to be Smith or Ford. This is just a bit of experience for Finn Smith, who is being... Gregor Townsend at Scotland is desperately trying to get him in, because he is Scotland qualified as well. So maybe for that reason alone, Steve Borthwick will get him in. Maybe he'll leave. No, I don't think he would hand out a cap. I don't think Finn Smith is going to get a cap in the Six Nations unless it's to stop him from going to Scotland. Centres, and here England have problems. And I don't exactly know how to solve it, as you will see. But they took three centres to the World Cup. Owen Farrell was an auxiliary 12. Elliot Daly could play 13 as well. So they took Ollie Lawrence, Manu Tuolangi, Joe Marchant. Two of those guys unavailable for the Six Nations. Manu Tuolangi through injury. Joe Marchant because he now plays in France. Ollie Lawrence, you see, have a look at the Premiership. There are hardly any English players playing with a number 12 on their back. So Steve Borthwick has got a real problem. And it's been a problem for a while. I'm almost at the point now where I'm thinking we have to just play a player who is a 12 at 12 and just make the best of it. And we've seen what you know, England have lost Rory Hutchinson and Nick Tompkins and Cam Redpath to other nations, England qualified players who are 12s naturally. I think now's the time England have just got to find natural 12s. I do think, though, Ollie Lawrence is going to have a 12 on his back. He is a 13, fundamentally. He can do a job at 12, but he is a 13. And that's where he looks amazing for Bath this season. That's where he's played almost all of his rugby. But I do think he's going to end up playing 12 for England. Who do you bring in? There are some options, and this is where I go. And you may have other thoughts on other players, and that's what the comments are for, tell me. But I would go for Henry Slade and Tommy Freeman as 2 13 options. And Henry Slade's form is just demanding. I mean, I was surprised. You can look at back at the videos before the World Cup. I was surprised that Henry Slade was surplus to requirements. I wouldn't have left him. I would have taken him to France, but and I'll also go and check my videos from maybe the very start of 2023. I've been calling for Tommy Freeman to be a centre for ages. I actually think he could be England's answer at 12. He's being played at 13 at Northampton and doing very well. So I'd like to have him back in the fold. And then I'm just going to pick 2 players who wear 12 for their club, who have got potentially, who knows? We're not going to know unless you get them into camp and have a look at them. But Seb Atkinson at Gloucester and Fraser Dingwall at Northampton, they are both natural 12s, and England don't have many of them. So it's a bit of an issue for England's centre, and I don't know how we solve it. But back three, the back 3 options at the World Cup were Freddie Stewart, Johnny May, who came in for Anthony Watson and his injury, Elliot Daly, Henry Arundel, Max Malins. Now, of those players, Johnny May has retired from international rugby. Henry Arundel's playing in France. Neither of those guys will be available. The other 3 I would keep in camp. I think Max Malins maybe on the fringe, could get knocked out by someone else, but I would keep the 3 of those guys in and then add to them. Well, there's tons of options, but I would go with Anthony Watson will come back in. And then you've got a fullback in George Furbank, who is just playing brilliantly for Northampton. And when it comes to a World Cup in 4 years' time, he has played fly half for Northampton, so he could be the 3rd fly half option and also be a specialist 15. I think a lot of international teams now, Thomas Ramos for France, you've got Bowden Barrett at New Zealand, you've got Damian Willemser at South Africa. The best teams have another playmaking distributor in the fullback position, and Freddie Stewart is not that. George Furbank offers that a little bit more, so maybe him. And then 3 wingers who are just very different but devastating potentially. And I think it's time for Caden Murley to be in the international arena. I think it's time that Adam Radwan is back in the fold, and I think Joe Thockiner-Singer has probably earned his spot back in certainly a wider Six Nations training squad. As for a team and how that would look, sorry, let me just have a look. That is my overall squad. I'll get myself out of the way for this so you can have a look. There are my backs. I picked 26 forwards, and the video for that is already in the channel. So go and have a look if you missed that one. 19 backs makes it a squad of 45. And that's the way I would go. I'll be interested to see how close that is to where Steve Borthwick actually does go. And let me know what you think. If there's any players I've got glaring omissions to, or players that you just can't see being picked by Steve Borthwick to make the cut, it's going to be very interesting to watch. There are others, so I'd be interested to know what you think. And as for a potential backline, I mean, the one winger, the number 11, could be Elliot Daly, it could be Tommy Freeman, it could be Caden Murley, Joe Thockiner-Singer, I've just gone with there, because he's a bit of a different option, and it might, having a big man in the back line, might mean that Ollie Lawrence is able to play a bit more of his natural game. But for now, I think he's going to end up being England's 12. I could equally see, and I'll just float this out there, I could quite honestly see that being the back line, with Freddie Stewart again operating on the wing and Marcus Smith at fullback. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility. Now, he toyed with it at the World Cup. I'm not saying I want that to happen, but I'm saying I think it could happen. But that's my thoughts on the back line. As I say, videos for other countries coming in the channel very soon. If you get value from the channel, if you enjoy the rugby content, I would love it if I get your subscription and a little thumbs up on the video to help spread the word. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.